Alice had just finished reciting a long poem, but the Mock Turtle and the Griffin did not like it, saying that she was reciting nonsense. Later, the Mock Turtle sang a song called Soup of the Evening, but before he could finish, the Griffin dragged Alice away, saying they had to go to the trial. When they arrived, the Red King and Queen were sitting on their thrones, surrounded by a large group of various small creatures, like a deck of cards. The executioner stood before them, chained, with a soldier on each side guarding him. The White Rabbit stood beside the king, holding a trumpet in one hand and a scroll of parchment in the other. In the center of the court, there was a table with a large plate of pies on it, beautifully made pies that made Alice's mouth water. Alice hoped the trial would end quickly, and they could all have some refreshments. But there was no sign of that happening, so she looked around to pass the time. Alice had never been to a court before, she had only read about it in books. She was delighted to find that she could identify everything here. She told herself that was the judge because he was wearing a wig. The judge must be the king because he had a crown on top of his wig, which looked quite peculiar and uncomfortable to wear. Alice thought those were the jury box, and the 12 animals must be the jurors. She had to call them animals because some were beasts, and some were birds. She repeated that last sentence to herself several times, feeling quite proud because she thought hardly any girls her age would know so many legal terms, not even the examiners who specialize in law. All 12 jurors were busy writing on their slates. Alice whispered to the Griffin, asking what they were doing before the trial started since there was nothing to record yet. The Griffin whispered back, saying they were writing down their own names for fear of forgetting them before the trial was over. Alice exclaimed loudly, "Stupid!" but immediately stopped talking because the White Rabbit shouted, "Silence in the court." Then the king put on his glasses and quickly looked around to see who was lying. Alice clearly saw that all the jurors had written "stupid" on their slates. She even saw one juror who didn't know how to write "stupid" and had to ask the juror next to him. Their slates would be a complete mess before the trial ended. Alice noticed one juror making a shrill noise while writing, and she couldn't stand it. So, she took a walk around the courtroom, and when that juror was not paying attention, she stole his pencil. The poor little juror, who happened to be Lizard Bill, had no idea what had happened. When he couldn't find his pencil, he could only use his finger to write on the slate, but of course, his finger didn't leave any marks on the slate. The king announced, "Call the first witness," read the accusation. The White Rabbit blew his trumpet 3 times and then opened the parchment to read, "The Queen of Hearts made some tarts. The Knave of Hearts stole those tarts in broad daylight, took them away, and hurriedly left. Please consider your verdict," the king asked the jurors. "Is it ready?" The White Rabbit quickly interrupted, saying, "There are many more procedures." So the king said, "Summon the first witness." The White Rabbit blew his trumpet 3 times and shouted, "Summon the first witness." The first witness was the soldier, who came in holding a teacup in one hand and a slice of buttered bread in the other. He said, "Your Majesty, forgive me for bringing these, but I was summoned before I could finish my afternoon tea." The king asked, "When did you start eating?" The soldier looked at the March Hare, who was following him, holding the Dormouse's hand, and said, "I think it was on the 14th of March." The March Hare said it was the 15th. The Dormouse added, the 16th, write it down. The king said to the jurors. The jurors hurriedly wrote down these 3 dates on their slates and then added them up, converting the total into pounds and shillings. The king told the soldier, take off your hat for evidence. That's not mine, it was stolen, the soldier shouted, glancing at the jurors. The jurors immediately recorded it as a fact. I bought hats to sell, none of the hats is mine, the soldier explained. At this point, the queen put on her glasses and stared at the soldier. The soldier turned pale and became nervous. Due to his nervousness, he took a big bite from his teacup instead of eating the buttered bread. At that moment, Alice had a strange feeling. She was puzzled for a while before slowly realizing that she had grown larger again. At first, she thought of standing up and leaving the courtroom, but then she decided to stay as long as there was room for her to fit in.